Living in California and having family that goes back before the Civil War and the Gold Rush days gives me very special feelings about this part of the country. A place poet Robert Louis Stevenson called the most beautiful meeting of land and sea on earth. Here in Pebble Beach, at the beginning of this century, it became a sporting mecca with the likes of the Leland Stanfords, Charles Crockers, and the elite from around the world coming here for the abundance of beauty and sport. Our golf courses and our equestrian sports are unsurpassed. Our art, the wine industry, and our rich agricultural abundance are world famous. This summer of 1987, His Holiness Pope John Paul II visited us, a visit that was billed as the biggest media event in California history. He came to pay tribute to Father Junipero Serra, who was the founder of the California Missions, who is buried here, and who is a candidate for sainthood. Monterey Mayor Dan Elbert and the City of Monterey have been preparing for this for months. Another historic first, the visit of a Pope. I spoke with David Armanosco at Colton Hall. David is president of the Monterey Chamber of Commerce, and his family has deep roots here. I asked him about the visit of Pope John Paul II and Monterey history.
With pleasure. I'm David Armanosco, president of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. You know, the fishing industry was a tremendous industry to Monterey, but it has given birth to even yet another industry which really is still in its infancy, but will be a tremendous effect on the future of this area, and that is the research undersea. Monterey has one of the deepest canyons off of the entire west coast that comes right into Monterey Bay. And for years we have had the Stanford Research Center down here studying the marine biology and the effects of the ocean and sea with fish life, marine life, etc. But now we are becoming a magnet. with the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and now a number of companies that are setting up around Monterey Bay from Moss Landing. We are experiencing a great interest in this area as becoming a center of exploration of the sea, and therefore we have a wonderful future as a marine study center here in Monterey Bay. You know, the visit of Pope John Paul is so overwhelming to Monterey. I can understand over the years of having seen news clips of the Pope's visits to other parts of the world and hearing of the great numbers of people that he attracts. People in this community are absolutely overwhelmed with the prospect that he is coming to this area, especially with the great pride that we have in Father Serra and the establishment of California through Monterey and Father Serra's efforts. The Pope's visit is something that will be a memory for all the children of this area as well as the adults. It is something that I'm sure people will use to mark time with, and I think that it's very significant that the capital of Alta California and then California be recognized by the fact that the Pope is coming to this small community compared to the size of the communities that he is visiting around the United States. And of course the recognition of Father Serra and perhaps the beatification of Father Serra, we are all awaiting anxiously to find how that will develop, because that certainly will have a tremendous effect. As far as Monterey as a tourism destination, I think it will only enhance that awareness that has been brought about already throughout the United States. It will completely enhance that awareness when the focus of the world is upon his visit to this community, and when the media of the world can show the world just how beautiful this part of California truly is. Monterey is so rich in history that I would love to go over a number of the dates. And I think the first significant date is 1542. Just imagine how long ago. On November 17th of 1542, Don Juan Cabrillo, who was a Portuguese seaman in search of California's fabled riches, discovered Monterey Bay. High seas prevented him from landing, but he recalled his visit to Monterey Bay as La Bahia de los Pinos, the Bay of Pines. He named it that for the Spanish government under King Philip II. In 1770, with the arrival of Father Junipero Serra, head of the California missions, and the commander Don Gaspar de Portola, Monterey became the military and ecclesiastical capital of Alta California. With all the pageantry of church and state, Monterey was officially born on June 3rd, 1770.
I come today as a pilgrim to this mission of San Carlos, which so powerfully evokes the heroic spirit and heroic deeds of Fray Junipero Serra, and which enshrines his mortal remains. This serene and beautiful place is truly the historical and spiritual heart of California. All the missions of El Camino Real bear witness to the challenges and heroism of an earlier time, but not a time forgotten or without significance for the California of today and the Church of today.
Many parties followed the Pope's visit. Even the King of Spain came to honor Fray Junipero Serra. There were celebrities, dignitaries, corporate VIPs. I spoke with nationally known Shakespearean actor and authority on Father Serra, James Patrick Kenny. Jim, tell us, who was Father Junipero Serra?
Father Junipero Serra. Well, he was, as we saw today at the party, a man who was considered important enough that the Holy Father would come to California and this beautiful Monterey Peninsula to see him. He was one of the great pioneers of this state and of the west coast of North America, and so he deserves to be remembered that way, as a great missionary, but also as a pioneer, as a man who came and did daring things. When they arrived in the New World at Veracruz, which was the seaport on the East Coast, Father Serra noticed that there were mules and horses waiting to take them the 100 leagues to Mexico City. Would be about 270 miles by our way of reckoning. But he wanted to walk because he felt that he would understand the Indians better if he encountered them right away, face to face. And he also remembered an admonition that St. Francis, the founder of the Franciscans, had given, which was never ride if you can walk. It was on that trip, which took about 3 weeks, that he was bitten in his sleep by a scorpion or a spider on his left leg near the ankle, scratched it in his sleep, and it swelled up and was to bother him the rest of his life. It was in 1767 that he first received word that they would probably be going to California. The man who was chosen to take care of the religious portion of the expedition, which became known as the Sacred Expedition of 1769-1770, was Father Serra. They had 3 ships, 3 small ships, total of 200 men, and they were going to, first of all, make the foundation at San Diego, then they would proceed north to Monterey, and then once those 2 were established and they had taken possession of that part of the world, then they would begin to fill in with other missions and presidios. The urgency was that the crown had heard that the Russians, under their queen, which Catherine, called the Great, was planning to send Russian explorers, adventurers, and trappers especially, across the Bering Strait down along the coast of North America and what is now Alaska and Canada. And so there was a rush to take possession of the land. Father Serra's greatness, I think, was this, that he was totally dedicated to what he was doing, that he did what he did over such a long period of time. 17 years a missionary in Mexico, 14 years a missionary here in California. That he had a vision and a view of what should happen. He wanted the missions to be what they became under his rule, which was training centers where the Indians could, of course, learn the Christian faith, and he was a missionary, but could also learn the skills that they would need to survive in a Spanish civilization that they had never asked for. And so I just think it's very appropriate that today the Holy Father, John Paul II, who himself calls himself a pilgrim and is a missionary, somewhat of an electronic missionary now, should come here to pay homage to this great man who lived and died 2 centuries ago. Father Serra was responsible for 9 of the 21 missions. Well, of course, the first one was in San Diego, and the second one was here at San Carlos, which was first in Monterey and then in Carmel. The third mission, which was one of his favorites, was San Antonio Mission, which is somewhat off the El Camino Real. You know, we talk of the El Camino Real, the route of the Lord, of the King. And of course that has been rerouted somewhat. So the third mission was in San Antonio, now on Hunter Liggett military reservation. The fourth was the mission San Gabriel, which was to be the biggest and the most productive agricultural-wise, which is now in the LA area. The fifth mission was at San Luis Obispo, St. Louis the Bishop, that's what that means. San Juan Capistrano, also near the Los Angeles area, between there and San Diego. And then the 2 in the north. Now, Father Serra, it was under his jurisdiction, but his old friend, Francisco Polo, actually was there at the founding of them. The one in San Francisco, now called Mission Dolores, and the one in Santa Clara, where the Jesuit University now is. And the last, the 9th mission, in what we now call Ventura, but it was San Buenaventura, the great father of the Franciscan order. I think the best way to characterize him, he insisted that the Indians should be treated with great dignity and respect. And of course, in this, he was in the tradition of a man named Bartolome de las Casas. And so Father Serra always insisted on this. And at his death, in the late days of August 1784, the Indians of the mission at that time in San Carlos and Carmel, about 700 of them, as many of them as could, crowded into his small cell and literally walked him to his death. They were with him singing, and praying, and weeping because they were going to lose this great, great man.
The story of Fray Junipero Serra is amazing. It's a great saga from an earlier age, an age of pioneers and explorers. Men like Balboa, Cortez, Drake, Vancouver. Did you know that Fray Serra walked on more than one occasion from Monterey to Mexico City and back? a distance of over 3,400 miles. During his lifetime, he worked tirelessly as a Franciscan missionary. He was born in Majorca, Spain in 1713 and died here, Carmel Mission, August 1784. We certainly enjoyed the visit of Pope John Paul II to the Monterey Peninsula. I know we will not soon forget this missionary of peace and champion of human dignity. We wish him all the best.